I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just took another sip of tea, jasmine, loose leaf, the kind I save for peaceful mornings. Except this morning, peace came with a text message that shattered 12 years of marriage in exactly 4 sentences. I'm going to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. Emptied our joint account. Don't bother calling. We'll send for my things later. That was it. No conversation, no explanation, not even a decency of a phone call. The message popped up while I was helping a regular customer, Mrs. Peterson, choose between 2 scarves. A silk one with soft lilac tones, a cashmere blend with deeper blues. I remember how her hands hesitated between them, how she asked me, "Claire, which one do you think brings out my eyes?" I smiled, the same practiced smile I'd used for years, held up the lilac. She beamed. I wrapped it, carefully, meticulously, in our signature silver boutique paper, folded at the corners just so, like I'd done 100 times before. That was the only sign that my husband had just nuked our life. No trembling hands, no stammer, no drama, just a slight tightening around my eyes, and a choice not to give him the show he was hoping for. My name is Claire. I'm 38, and I was just dumped by my husband over a text message. In the middle of my workday, in the middle of my store, in the middle of what he probably thought was my breakdown. But what he didn't know, what he never cared enough to realize was this: if you light a fire under a woman like me, you'd better pray she doesn't walk away calmly, because that calm, it's not weakness, it's focus, and I was focused on breathing, focused on remembering everything I'd suspected, focused on not letting the woman standing in front of me, scarf now paid for, see the storm that had just erupted inside my phone screen. You see, Mark always assumed he was the smarter one, the provider, the one with logic and plans and spreadsheets, while I, in his words, ran a cute little shop. He never understood what I built, what I fought for, what I protected when he wasn't paying attention. Because while Mark had been making late-night excuses and buying new cologne, I'd been noticing, paying attention, preparing. He didn't know about the separate bank account I'd opened 3 months ago. Didn't know I'd already called a lawyer the week I found the hotel receipt for 2. Didn't know I'd copied every suspicious charge, every altered password, every time he came home smelling like guilt, masked in mint and musk. He thought he was one move ahead, but he'd misjudged me the same way the world misjudges women like me. Soft voice, warm smile, good wife. What he didn't see? The spreadsheet I kept on my own, the records I saved, the ownership papers he never bothered to read, because they were in my maiden name. So I read the message again. I'm going to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. Of course he was. I'd seen the way he looked at Melissa, the new receptionist, at the company Christmas party. Too many laughs, too many lingering hands. She was young enough to call me ma'am, and naive enough to believe that men like Mark were romantic. She had no idea she was just the next phase of his midlife costume. Like the new gym membership and the flashy car with lease payments he couldn't really afford. Emptied our joint account. He thought that would break me. He didn't realize that joint account was a shell. Something I'd let exist with just enough money to keep up appearances. 2 months' worth of deposits, give or take. Enough to make him feel like he had access, while everything else had long been rerouted to safety. Don't bother calling. I wouldn't. I'd already said everything I needed to say, months ago. The day I confronted him about the second phone I found in his car, he gaslit me, told me I was paranoid, told me I was losing my mind. No, Mark, I was finding it. And now, I was about to use it. We'll send for my things later. I hoped he'd pack light, because most of what was in that house, my house, wasn't his to claim. I'd inherited it from my grandmother. And despite all of his, "Why don't we add my name to the deed?" suggestions over the years, I never did. Call it instinct, call it stubbornness, call it knowing the storm was coming. So yes, I was just dumped by my husband via text. But this isn't a story about heartbreak. This is a story about what happens when you bet against a woman who knows exactly what she's worth. A woman who keeps receipts, a woman who doesn't panic, a woman who doesn't explode, because she's already built the foundation for the rebuild. So no, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just poured myself another cup of tea and started the countdown to the day he'd realize just how badly he'd underestimated the woman he left behind. Because I'd started preparing for his betrayal 3 months ago. Yes, long before the text message, long before the smirk on his face the day he came home smelling of something too expensive to be for me. That message didn't break me because I'd already been breaking, slowly, piece by piece, for months. And when something breaks slow, it doesn't shatter, it reshapes. 3 months earlier, I was cleaning out the glove compartment of Mark's car, looking for a copy of our car insurance. I was supposed to renew it that week. Instead, I found a receipt, tucked behind a napkin, faded just enough to suggest it wasn't meant to be found, but fresh enough to sting. Dinner for 2 at the Sapphire Room, a restaurant we'd never gone to together, the kind with white tablecloths where the cheapest wine starts at $75. He told me he was working late that night, but the bill said 8:43 p.m. 2 entrees, 1 bottle of wine, and a dessert listed as shared. It didn't even have the decency to be subtle. I didn't confront him, not right away, not then. Because something inside me, something older, wiser, maybe even colder, said, don't waste this moment. A woman yelling is easy to ignore, but a woman watching, a woman quiet and calculating, that's terrifying. That same evening, I opened a new bank account at a completely different bank, took every cent from my personal savings, the one I kept separate from our joint account, and moved it. Then I set up a transfer rule. Every time a deposit hit my boutique business account, a percentage would immediately disappear into the new account, out of sight, out of reach. He used to tease me for being paranoid with money, said I had too many passwords, too many spreadsheets. Just let me handle the finances, he said once, early in our marriage. I never did. Not because I didn't trust him back then, but because deep down, I never trusted what power did to him. The next day, I started collecting data. Not emotionally, systematically. I opened a folder on my laptop, labeled it plainly, Documents. Inside, every receipt that didn't match his excuses, screenshots of strange texts I saw on his lock screen, a log of the times he came home exhausted from work, but still had cologne on his collar. It was like building a case, not just against a man, but against the story he'd been selling me for months. That's the thing people don't understand about betrayal. It doesn't start with sex. It starts with patterns. The way he started locking his phone at night, the sudden gym membership, the way he stopped noticing when I got my hair done, but noticed every woman under 30 at the grocery store. Betrayal starts in the small things, like how he stopped asking how my day went, but got defensive when I didn't ask about his. And then came the passwords. First, his work email changed, then his Apple ID, then our Netflix account. He claimed it was for security. I knew better. He was locking me out, not to protect himself from the world, but from me. So I played my part, still made his coffee in the morning, still folded his laundry, still kissed him goodbye on a cheek. And every time I smiled at him across the kitchen table, I was archiving another charge, another location tag, another name that appeared more than once on his credit card. I even went to the Christmas party at his office. That's where I met her, Melissa. Pretty, young, nervous, but too eager to hide it. She laughed too loud at his jokes, touched his arm just a little too long when passing the wine, called me Mrs. Harrison, like she was meeting a professor, not her boss's wife. I saw the way Mark looked at her, not just with lust, but with that pathetic sparkle that men get when they think they've found youth again. What he didn't know? He hadn't found youth. He just found an echo of his own desperation. By then, I was already in contact with the lawyer, referred by a friend who had been through a messy divorce 2 years earlier. She saved my life, she told me. I didn't need saving yet, but I needed a map. We sat in a quiet office, the walls lined with law books and framed degrees, and when the lawyer asked, "Why are you here today?" I answered honestly, "Because I'm not going to be the woman who finds out too late. I'm going to be the one who walks away prepared." She told me what documents to gather, what behaviors to monitor, how to make sure my business, my boutique, remained completely separate. "Treat it like war," she said softly, "but don't fire the first shot. Just make sure you're not defenseless when it comes." So I built my fortress, made sure the boutique's LLC and tax IDs were updated with my name only, took photos of every inventory shipment, backed up every file. I even changed the safe code at the shop, quietly, just in case. And when Mark came home one night, annoyed that his card randomly didn't work at a steakhouse, I smiled. "Probably the chip," I said. "You know how those machines get." But the truth? I'd already reduced his access to our joint account, kept it just full enough to keep him from getting suspicious. The rest? Tucked away under layers of firewalls, folders, and financial firm names he didn't recognize. I became fluent in his lies. Like learning a language by immersion. I could tell which excuse he'd use based on what shoes he wore. If it was the brown loafers, he'd claim a work dinner. If he came home in gym clothes, he'd say he was just trying to get healthier. I watched. I documented. I waited. Because men like Mark don't fall when you push them. They fall when you stop holding them up. So when the message came, "I'm leaving, going to Miami with Melissa," emptied our joint account. I didn't collapse. Because I already knew. And because I had already prepared for this moment, not like a victim, but like a woman who refused to be caught off guard again. He thought I'd cry, but instead, I opened my folder, saved the message, labeled it Exhibit A. And then I made myself a sandwich, because I hadn't eaten yet, and because revenge, the real kind, needs strength and patience and a very steady hand. A quiet wife isn't always weak. Sometimes she's just building a case. And that's exactly what I had done. Mark, my husband, had no idea. No idea that the silence at the dinner table wasn't submission. It was observation. No idea that my quiet nods and soft smiles were not approval. They were confirmation. Confirmation that my suspicions were no longer theories, but facts being filed, one by one. He thought he was so clever, so untouchable, so alpha. But what Mark didn't realize, and what most men like him never do, is that women like me, we don't explode. We evolve. We become something stronger, colder, sharper, not out of vengeance, but out of sheer necessity. Because when the person you once trusted with your heart becomes the person who plays games with your dignity, you learn to protect yourself in ways no one ever taught you. He had no idea I'd already hired a lawyer. 6 weeks before that ridiculous text, it wasn't dramatic. No late-night phone calls, no crying into wine glasses with friends. It was a Tuesday morning. I closed the boutique early, walked into a law office with clean wood floors and a calm receptionist. "Appointment for Claire Harrison," I said. They ushered me into a room with high ceilings and calm lighting. The kind meant to make you feel stable even when your world is falling apart. My lawyer's name was Linda. She didn't smile too much, didn't coddle, didn't pity. She looked me in the eye and said, "You're not crazy. You're just finally seeing things clearly." She asked for the facts, so I gave her the truth, plain and without decoration. My husband is cheating. I have receipts. I have screenshots. I have an entire folder named Documents and another named If He Gets Arrogant. She raised one eyebrow. You've already started building the case. I nodded. I'm not ready to file, but I need to know. If he tries to burn it all down, how do I make sure he burns alone? That's when she smiled, just a small one. Good. You came in time. She told me about asset protection, separate versus marital property, why keeping my boutique fully under my name mattered. Keep your LLC untouched, no joint funds, no co-signatures, no gray areas. You built it, keep it yours. Done. Already done. She reviewed the deed to the house, still in my maiden name. My grandmother left it to me. Mark had asked me twice, gently, then more aggressively, to add his name to the deed. Just in case something happens, he said. Just paperwork, I'm your husband after all. I always found a reason to delay. Call it intuition, or maybe just the faint scent of bullshit. Linda reviewed the file and looked impressed. Claire, this house is yours. No court will touch it. Not with this level of clarity. I felt something warm rise in my chest, not joy, not relief. Power. The kind you don't scream about, the kind you carry quietly, like a blade hidden in silk. She asked about our joint account. I told her I'd already funneled my money out. She asked about credit cards. I told her I'd removed him as an authorized user on my business line. She asked about communication. I showed her the screenshots, his bragging about how Melissa gets me in ways you never did. His mockery. At least you've got your little shop to keep you busy in your old age. Her face didn't change much. She just opened a legal pad and wrote 3 words. Malicious abandonment. Premeditated fraud. Disrespect. She laid out the next steps like a military operation. If he makes the first move, let him. We'll freeze assets immediately. You keep collecting data. You don't engage. You don't react. You win. So that's what I did. I became colder. Colder, but not bitter. Colder because clarity feels cold after you've been gaslit for too long. At home, Mark kept playing his part, coming home later and later, smelling more expensive, saying things like, I've got a lot on my plate right now. Not once did he ask how my boutique was doing. Not once did he notice the new line of handbags I'd designed myself. I could have told him that the boutique had landed in a regional fashion magazine, that we'd doubled profits that quarter. But why share victories with someone who only saw you as a hobby? I started seeing the whole marriage differently, like someone turned the lights on in the theater and showed me the props were cardboard. The way he used to call me babe, but only when he wanted something. The way he'd brush off my opinions with a chuckle and a you wouldn't get it. The man who once promised to protect me was the one I now had to legally protect myself from. He told me once, during a fight, that I was too calculated, too planned, too structured, not spontaneous enough. Maybe he was right. But you know what I learned? Spontaneity is what leaves women broke and blindsided after men like him decide to trade them in for someone who still posts live, laugh, love quotes on Instagram. I was never spontaneous, but I was strategic. And strategy? That's how I protected my house, my business, my future. Mark still thought he had the upper hand. Still thought I was the emotional one, the one who'd beg, who'd cry, who'd ask, why her, what did I do wrong? But the truth? I'd already stopped asking that question months ago. Not because I got my answer, but because I stopped caring what his answer might be. He kept saying little things trying to provoke a reaction. You're lucky I let you keep the house. Melissa says I deserve someone who appreciates me. I was miserable, Claire. You made me feel old. But I didn't respond. I logged the messages, saved the voicemails, labeled them evidence. Because I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his opponent. And every time he opened his mouth to belittle me, he added another brick to the case I was building. Another reason for the judge to rule in my favor. Another nail in the coffin of the man who thought maturity meant mocking the woman who kept him afloat for over a decade. He didn't know I had every receipt, every lie, every insult. He didn't know the woman he tried to erase was quietly becoming a force too documented to dismiss. He thought I was weak because I didn't throw plates, didn't yell, didn't demand. But I was busy. Busy building timelines. Busy tracking funds. Busy protecting my empire. Because that's what it was, my boutique. Not just a store, not just racks of fabric and perfume samples. It was everything I built without him. From nothing. With late nights, with sacrifice, with a quiet kind of ambition he never took seriously. He'd call it your little shop, like it was a lemonade stand, and yet that little shop paid for his car, his vacations, his second chances. And the moment he tried to humiliate me with that message, he triggered everything I had prepared for. I wasn't just a quiet wife. I was a strategist, a builder, a witness, a woman who watched him dig his own grave and simply made sure she had the documents ready for the burial. And when he walked out the door for the last time, I didn't flinch. I didn't beg. I just opened a bottle of wine, sat in the quiet of the house he once thought he owned, and whispered to myself, "It's not revenge if it's already yours." I canceled the plane tickets, the hotel, the credit card, with a few calm phone calls. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes it's served with a twist of lime and a chilled glass of vintage Sauvignon you've been saving for a special occasion. Like watching your ex realize he's not the main character in your life story anymore. Mark had made his move. That smug text, the gloating, the mockery, all of it delivered like some triumphant announcement. I'm going to Miami with Melissa. Use the joint card for the flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL. He actually wrote LOL, like it was funny. Like the life we'd built together was nothing but a punchline in his midlife stand-up routine. But what he didn't realize was that while he was laughing, I was already dialing. The first call was to the credit card company. Calm, precise, unbothered. "Hello, I'd like to report fraudulent charges made to my joint credit card." The woman on the other end had the kind of voice that tells you she's seen worse. "Can you identify the charges in question, ma'am?" 2 first-class tickets to Miami booked this morning, hotel charges at the Royal Palm. "Oh, and I'd like to remove my husband as an authorized user as well." A pause. "Do you have documentation to support your claim of fraud?" I smiled, because oh, sweet stranger, do I ever. "Yes, I have a text message from my husband admitting he used the card to travel with his girlfriend after emptying our joint bank account." Another pause, but this time I heard it, that subtle shift in tone, professional curiosity giving way to quiet admiration. "Please forward the messages to this secure email. I'll expedite the investigation. The charges will be reversed, the card will be canceled immediately, and your husband will receive notice of the inquiry." "Perfect," I said. "Would you like a new card issued in your name only?" "Already done." One call. That's all it took to crumble their grand Miami dream. Next, the airline. Same voice, same calm. "Yes, I like to cancel 2 tickets booked under this name, using a card that's just been reported for fraud." Done. Hotel? Also done. Reservation? Canceled. Confirmation email? Deleted. Booking privileges on that account? Suspended. I didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't make a scene. Why would I? Mark had handed me the blade himself. I just pressed the tip where it hurt, with grace. Meanwhile, I imagined the scene at the airport. Mark in his overpriced jeans and spray-on tan. Melissa dragging a leopard print suitcase that was probably half full of insecurity. Standing at the counter, tickets denied, confused, insisting. Mark trying to charm the airline employee with that same smirk he once used on me. Melissa checking her phone, wondering why the Royal Palm hasn't texted her room confirmation yet. The chaos, the unraveling, the slow dawning horror that the escape hatch was sealed shut. By me. And while they stood there, arguing with customer service, I stood in my kitchen. Still, steady, barefoot on the tile. I reached into the cabinet, pulled out the bottle I'd been saving. A vintage Sauvignon Blanc from the year I opened my boutique, the bottle I told myself I'd open when I felt proud. I popped the cork, let the scent breathe, poured a glass, and I drank to closure. Not to him, not to us, not to the pain, to clarity. There's something sacred about drinking wine alone. On the night your future finally becomes yours, no noise, no doubt, no negotiation, just silence and sovereignty. People ask me later if I ever felt guilty, for canceling the trip, for cutting him off so sharply, for humiliating him. Here's the truth. No, not for 1 second. Because you don't get to detonate a marriage, mock someone's age, steal from a shared life, and then cry foul when the woman you underestimated refuses to stay crushed. Mark didn't just cheat. He didn't just lie. He tried to erase me, reduce me to the bitter ex-wife in his self-serving narrative. But I didn't react like the villain in his story. I responded like the woman he forgot I was, the one who built an empire while he was busy building illusions. He underestimated my silence, thought I was still waiting for him to come home, still hoping, still forgiving. But the truth, I wasn't waiting. I was watching. Every move, every lie, every misplaced charge on the card, every whispered phone call in the bathroom. And now the plane was grounded. The hotel room was gone, and his new life with Melissa, off to a rocky start at a budget inn off I-95. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, someone who used to work with him, that Melissa cried in the motel parking lot, that she called her sister, that she accused Mark of lying to her too. Didn't you say you were rich? Didn't you say you and your wife were already separated? Apparently, he said, she went psycho. She's trying to ruin me. No, Mark. I didn't ruin you. You ruined yourself. I just pressed cancel. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Text after text after text. What the hell did you do? The airline said the tickets were reversed. The hotel's gone too. Are you serious? I'll sue you. This is fraud, Claire. I unboxed a new shipment of handbags at the boutique. Life moves on, even when men fall apart. Around noon, his mother called. Of course she did. Claire, dear. Mark told us everything. He said you've been vindictive, that you froze the account, that you're making trouble with the credit cards. I put her on speaker, kept working. Arranged a display of silk scarves. Did he also tell you he emptied the account and used our joint car to fly his mistress to Miami? Silence. Then, well, he said you pushed him to it, that you've been distant, controlling. I laughed. Genuinely. Barbara, I have the text messages. Want me to read them to you? Another pause. He did mention something about your age and Melissa being young. I told him it was inappropriate. I nodded. Goodbye, Barbara. My lawyer advised me to keep minimal contact with Mark and his family. Click. Back to work. By late afternoon, the gossip had already started. Mark's sister was telling friends that Melissa posted about being trapped at a roadside motel with a liar. The boutique got busier than usual. Women came in with curiosity in their eyes and credit cards in their hands. "We just wanted to show support," one whispered. "Heard what happened. Good for you." They bought more than they needed. They walked out taller, like my story had given them a little of their own voice back. That night, I lit a candle. Not for him, for me. For the girl I was before this marriage. For the woman I became through it. For the fire I almost lost. And the backbone I rebuilt in silence. Mark thought the message was his power move. He thought canceling me was effortless. What he didn't see was that every step he took toward the door just made me freer, clearer, and a hell of a lot stronger. So yes, I canceled the plane tickets. I canceled the hotel. I canceled the credit card. But what I really canceled, his illusion of control. Because you don't get to break a woman like me and walk away laughing. You don't get to cheat and still call the shots. You don't get to be the storm and the victim. He called it revenge. I called it accountability. With interest. Then he texted, "I'll pay you for your half of the shop." I actually laughed out loud when I read that. Not a sarcastic chuckle, not a bitter exhale. A full, honest, almost joyful laugh. The kind of laugh that only comes when someone finally reveals just how delusional they really are. My half. That's what he wrote. "Let's talk this through like adults. I'll pay you for your half of the shop. I know it means a lot to you. Let's be fair." Fair? Fair. The same man who emptied our account booked a romantic getaway with his receptionist and then had the audacity to mock my age like it was a flaw, was now offering to buy out the business I had birthed, built, and bled for. Let me be clear, Mark never contributed a cent to my boutique, not during its startup, not during its growth, not even during its near collapse in the second year, when I maxed out a personal credit card to keep the lights on. In fact, back then, he told me, "Maybe this is a sign you should just let it go. You're spending too much time on it. It's becoming a hobby more than a business." A hobby. He called it that more than once, whenever I stayed late after closing to fix the books, whenever I met with suppliers, whenever I ran holiday promotions, managed customer complaints, or designed new window displays. It was always a hobby to him, even when it started paying more than his middle management job, even when it funded our vacations, our kitchen remodel, and the new washer-dryer set he picked out. Still a hobby, still something cute and small. I remember one night, I was up until 2 a.m., balancing orders, inventory, and payroll. He came downstairs, half asleep, leaned against the kitchen doorframe and said, "Claire, come to bed. No one's going to care about some little boutique 10 years from now." 10 years later, my boutique is featured in a national fashion magazine. And he's living in his parents' house, explaining to strangers on Facebook why the system is rigged. So when I got his message, "I'll pay you for your half," I didn't just laugh. I documented, screenshot, time-stamped, sent directly to Linda, my lawyer. "Add this to the pile," I wrote. She replied within 2 minutes. "That's a gold mine, another admission that he's trying to claim rights over separate assets. Let him keep talking." So I didn't respond. I let him dig his own grave. 2 hours later, another message came. "I made that place successful, you know. Who supported you all those years? Who paid rent when you weren't turning a profit? I believed in you." Lie, lie, twisted truth. And no, he didn't believe in me. He tolerated me. He hated that I out-earned him. He hated when customers complimented me. Hated when suppliers asked to speak to the owner and I stepped forward. Hated when I talked about growth, expansion, brand identity. He used to joke at parties, "Claire's the CEO of Scars and Dreams." Cue laughter, cue his smug sip of wine. And yet here he was, asking for half, like I owed him, like I was supposed to split something he never lifted a finger to build. There's something particularly infuriating about a man who discourages you while you're building, then turns around and wants equity once it's standing. He doesn't want to invest. He wants to inherit. And I wasn't having it. Mark thought just because we were married, he had automatic access to my business, my labor, my intellectual property, my brand. He thought proximity meant ownership, that husband was synonymous with partner. Even when he didn't show up, even when he mocked me, even when he told me, "Don't get your hopes up, most small businesses fail within 5 years." I should have framed that quote, but instead I framed his last text. "Have fun with your little shop. At least it'll keep you busy in your old age." That text still hangs in my office, right under my 2024 Women in Business Award. It wasn't just about the boutique. It was about principle, about the entitlement, the arrogance, the way he believed truly, deeply, that I'd hand him something he didn't earn. And here's the kicker. When I started the business, he refused to co-sign the lease. "I'm not risking my credit for your fantasy, Claire." That's what he said, so I signed it alone. I took out the loan alone. I hired the first employee alone. I cried in the back office alone when I couldn't make payroll in month 6. And now he wanted his half? It reminded me of something I once read. They leave you in the trenches, then demand a throne when you build a kingdom. So I let him text. I let him whine, let him rant. "You're being unreasonable. We're married. What's yours is mine. You're vindictive. You're punishing me. Melissa would never treat me this way." I stayed silent. Because silence, when you have power, isn't weakness. It's strategy. Linda filed an emergency order that week to legally declare my boutique as a separate entity, backed by paperwork, tax returns, and proof of single ownership. Mark's texts helped seal the deal. He didn't just fail to hide his intent, he broadcasted it. "Half that business is mine. I deserve something for supporting you. You wouldn't have made it without me." He thought those messages would pressure me. Instead, they were used against him, word for word, in court. At the hearing, his lawyer tried to spin it.
"My client provided moral support.
He helped with ideas.
He contributed emotionally to her success."
Linda didn't flinch. She pulled out the text. This is how he spoke about her work. "Your little shop. It's cute that you have a hobby. Nobody cares about scarves, Claire." This is not the language of a business partner. This is the language of contempt. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. Then came the paperwork. LLC registration? Only my name. Bank records? All business income routed through an account he never touched. Inventory logs? Handwritten by me. Signed and time-stamped. Receipts? Filed and organized. I ran that shop like I ran my life. Tightly, privately, without illusions. Mark sat there in his wrinkled suit, next to a lawyer he probably couldn't afford, and watched his imagined empire collapse. Melissa wasn't there. She'd already broken up with him 2 weeks earlier. Posted a long caption on Instagram about learning from mistakes and rebuilding self-worth. Apparently, he moved back in with his parents, was working part-time at a warehouse. His once gelled hair now thinning, his pride now bent. He glared at me as we walked out of court.
"You destroyed everything."
I looked at him, really looked at him, and said, "No. You destroyed everything. I just kept the receipts." He wanted half. He got half of nothing. Because that's what he brought. That's what he earned. And that's what he walked away with. You don't get to dismiss a woman's work, mock her, sabotage her, steal from her, then come crawling back with open palms. Not here. Not in this lifetime. So yes, I laughed at his text. I laughed again in court. And I'm still laughing now. Each time a customer walks into my shop, buys a product with my name on the tag, and thanks me for building something beautiful, because it was never his half. It was my whole damn kingdom, built, protected, and preserved by a woman he never saw coming. At court, he showed up like a young stud and left exposed as a fool. I saw him the moment I stepped through the courthouse doors. Mark, leaning against the wall like he was posing for a magazine cover, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too small, jeans too tight for a man pushing 45, and shoes so polished they looked rented. He'd gotten a fresh haircut, the kind men get when they're trying too hard to look like they aren't trying. Next to him was Melissa, 20-something, nervous, fidgeting with the strap of her handbag, looking everywhere but at me. She wore a low-cut blouse and fake confidence. He wore the smugness of a man who still thought this was all a misunderstanding, a hiccup, a bump in the road. I didn't say a word. I walked past them slowly. Each click of my heels echoed off the marble floor like punctuation. In one hand, I held a coffee. In the other, a thick black folder. Inside, evidence. Bank statements, screenshots, my grandmother's deed, with my name on every page. A silent fortress built from truth. He glanced at me, eyes scanning, looking for weakness, for regret, for hesitation. He didn't find it. Just lipstick, a sharp suit, and a woman who knew exactly what she came for, and wasn't leaving without it. When our case was called, he strutted in like he was auditioning for a cologne commercial. Sat down with his lawyer, a man who looked like he'd just read the file for the first time that morning. I sat down next to Linda, my lawyer, my sword. She opened her file with one quiet flick. "Ready?" she whispered. "Always," I replied. The judge entered, gray hair, no-nonsense glasses, the kind of woman who'd heard every excuse, every plea, every fake tear imaginable. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Linda stood first, calm, clear, deadly. "Your Honor, what we present today is not a case of bitter revenge. It is a case of financial misconduct, premeditated fraud, and an attempt to claim ownership of assets my client built alone, protected alone, and managed without contribution from the defendant." She laid out every document, one by one. Exhibit A, the text message admitting he emptied the joint account. Exhibit B, the credit card charges, the flights, the hotel. Exhibit C, a detailed record of the boutique's revenue showing zero involvement from Mark. Exhibit D, the property deed, left to me by my grandmother, in my name only. Mark's lawyer stammered. "Your Honor, surely we can agree that, during the course of a marriage, spouses contribute in less tangible ways. My client provided emotional support, encouragement, moral investment." The judge raised a hand. "Is your client claiming financial stake based on moral support?" "Well, he ridiculed the very business he now claims to have supported." She pulled out one final page. This is a transcript of his own words. "Have fun with your little shop. At least it'll keep you busy in your old age." Even the courtroom clerk raised her eyebrows. The judge turned to Mark. "Mr. Harrison, do you deny sending these messages?" He shifted in his seat.
I didn't think she'd take 'em so seriously. I was just trying to make a clean break."
"By draining your joint account and using the funds to travel with another woman?" the judge asked.
I didn't know it was illegal."
"Ignorance is not a defense," she cut in. Linda leaned forward. "Your Honor, my client's preparations were not emotional, they were legal. She did not act in vengeance. She acted in protection. She documented every withdrawal. She separated business and personal finances. She maintained clean records. She filed for legal clarity the moment she saw the risk. Silence. The kind that feels heavy. Then the judge nodded and delivered the ruling.
This court finds clear evidence of financial misconduct by the defendant. The boutique is a separately owned business, formed before marriage, maintained without shared assets, and operated solely by the plaintiff. The house is presented in the deed as the sole property of the plaintiff. The funds removed from the joint account are to be returned within 24 hours.
Mark blinked.
But it's gone,
He said.
I already spent it.
The judge didn't flinch.
Then I suggest you find it.
Outside the courtroom, he chased after me, not Melissa, just him. She'd already slipped away, phone in hand, avoiding eye contact.
Claire, wait!
I didn't. He walked faster.
You didn't have to humiliate me like that. We could have handled this privately.
I turned slowly. You humiliated yourself. I just brought the receipts. He looked like he wanted to say something, anything, but his mouth hung open, empty. His mother was waiting outside, holding her keys, looking exhausted. She barely glanced at me before turning to him. Get in a car, Mark. The child in him obeyed. I stood there for a moment, watching the car pull away, and for the first time since this all began, I felt light. Not happy, not triumphant, but whole. It's a strange thing being underestimated. Men like Mark don't just cheat on you. They cheat against you, against your competence, your work, your mind. They bet on your silence, on your loyalty, on your inability to fight back. And when you do, when you walk into court with calm hair and clean files, they don't recognize you because they never really saw you in the first place. His girlfriend left, his job demoted him, and his mother drove him home. Melissa left him 3 weeks after the court hearing. Not with a bang, not with a dramatic fight, just a quiet, tired exit. The kind that happens when reality finally catches up with fantasy. She'd been playing house with a middle-aged man who couldn't pay for his own coffee without checking his balance. Sleeping on a futon in her studio apartment, sharing space with someone who couldn't stop complaining about the injustice of divorce court. She'd gone from selfies in hotel robes to ramen noodles and half-hearted pep talks. I don't blame her. She was young. She didn't know that older man with ambition sometimes just means older man with unresolved baggage and debt. The breakup happened quietly, but the fallout was loud. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Mark had tried everything to keep her. We can start over. I just need a little time. You're the only one who understands me. But Melissa had started seeing the patterns, the mood swings, the excuses, the blame. It wasn't charming anymore. It was exhausting. She moved out one Sunday morning, packed her bags while he was still asleep, and left the keys on the table with a note that read, "You don't need a girlfriend. You need therapy." Ouch, but accurate. By then, his job situation was already deteriorating. HR had received an anonymous tip, maybe from Melissa, maybe from someone at the office, maybe even from someone on LinkedIn who connected the dots. Either way, it triggered an internal review. They found the receipts. The hotel bookings charged to the company card, the after-hours dinners with a subordinate, the mentorship emails with suspiciously flirty undertones, the promotion he'd been bragging about, revoked, the manager role he'd been chasing for years, given to someone younger, less messy, more professional. They offered him a demotion instead, same company, smaller desk, lower title, no team to supervise, no office window, just a quiet message, effective immediately. Please collect your belongings. Mark tried to spin it, told people he was taking a step back to focus on his personal life, that the corporate world was toxic anyway, that he was working on a startup idea, but the truth, he was spiraling. His bank account was empty. His girlfriend was gone. His career was cracked. And when he walked out of the courthouse that day, still thinking someone would save him, the only person waiting was his mother. She drove him home in a beige sedan, the same one she's had since 2008, the air freshener swinging back and forth as she told him, "You can stay in your old room for now, but you need to get your act together." He moved back into the bedroom with the dinosaur posters and the twin mattress, the one with a creaky spring and a closet full of forgotten trophies. 45 years old, 2 failed relationships, no savings, living in a room decorated by his 12-year-old self. The same man who once said to me, "You'll be alone by 50, Claire." That's just how it is for women your age. Men age like wine, women, not so much. Was now being reminded by his mother to take the trash out on Wednesdays. Meanwhile, I was cutting the ribbon on my second boutique location. This one was bigger, brighter, on a street corner with tall windows and steady foot traffic. The launch party was modest, but beautiful. String lights, sparkling water, soft music. Local women, customers, supporters, all coming to celebrate. They weren't just buying scarves or handbags, they were buying resilience. A local journalist attended. She'd heard the story, or at least parts of it, and wanted to feature me in a small business column. "You're the woman who turned betrayal into expansion," she said. I smiled, but I didn't correct her, because it wasn't betrayal that built the second store. It was me, my planning, my vision, my refusal to be defined by someone else's midlife crisis. Later that week, the article came out titled, "From Abandoned to Empowered, the Woman Who Rebuilt Her Life, One Boutique at a Time." It went modestly viral, not because of scandal, but because so many women saw themselves in it, saw their own dismissals, their own sacrifices, their own little shops finally being valued. I got emails from strangers, DMs from other entrepreneurs, even calls from women I hadn't spoken to in years. One message read, "You reminded me that survival isn't enough. We're allowed to thrive." Mark saw the article too. I know because his sister texted me a screenshot of his Facebook post. Funny how people rewrite history when they're the ones holding the microphone. He was bitter, but powerless. And I didn't need to respond. I had a store full of customers, a bank account with commas in it, and a team of women who believed in the mission. Funny how that works, how the man who tried to take everything from me ended up with nothing. He still texts sometimes, late at night, after too many drinks, I assume. "You'll regret how you treated me. I should have fought harder. I still think about you sometimes. Melissa was a mistake." I never respond. I just screenshot and forward to Linda, in case we ever need them again. His mother called me once more, voice low, tired, honest. I don't know what happened to him. I raised him better. He talks like the world owes him something. But I see it now. You weren't the problem. I thanked her, but I didn't offer comfort. I'd done enough comforting in that family to last a lifetime. Some nights, I walk past the first boutique, the original one. Lights glowing, customers chatting, staff laughing in the back room. And I remember the nights I almost gave up. When rent was late, when sales dipped, when I felt like I was building something no one respected. And now it stands taller than ever. Like me. Mark lost a wife, but more importantly, he lost the woman who built a kingdom around him. And now, he's a memory, a warning, a footnote, a framed text message hanging in my office, right next to the newest business award. 5 years later, I stood on a stage teaching women how to protect what's theirs. The lights were warm, soft, the kind that make the room feel more intimate than intimidating. Rows of women, seated, leaning forward, listening, some young, some older, some with notepads in their laps, pens poised, some with pain in their eyes hidden behind polite smiles. I took a breath, not because I was nervous, but because I knew what I was about to say would land deep, in places not often touched by spreadsheets or legal advice. 5 years ago, I was sitting in a lawyer's office, wondering if I was being too dramatic. 5 years ago, I was canceling a flight my husband booked for a vacation with his mistress, using our joint credit card. 5 years ago, I was quietly moving every cent of my money out of reach, filing paperwork, organizing documents, and preparing for a war I hoped I'd never have to fight. Now I was the keynote speaker at a Women in Business conference. Now I was standing on a stage wearing a tailored white blazer, holding a wireless mic. Now I was introduced not as someone's ex-wife, but as the founder of a successful retail brand, a speaker, a mentor, a survivor, and, most importantly, a strategist. Ladies, I began, scanning the crowd. I'm not here to tell you how to build a business. I'm here to tell you how to protect it. Because building is only half the battle. Keeping it safe, especially from the people closest to you, is where the real strength lies. A murmur of understanding moved through the crowd like a ripple. Women nodded. Some closed their eyes, briefly, the way people do when someone says something that hits too close to the truth. I told them about the boutique, about the years I spent working late, budgeting by candlelight, and restocking shelves after closing, how I poured my soul into the brand. One scarf, one perfume bottle, one curated display at a time. I told them how Mark called it my little shop, how he teased me for being too serious about a side hustle, how he dismissed my spreadsheets, rolled his eyes at my receipts, and always made sure I knew that he was the real breadwinner. Then I said he left me for someone 20 years younger, emptied our joint account, and sent me a text message. I clicked the remote. A giant screen behind me lit up. His final message, framed in bold white text on a black background. Have fun with your little shop. At least it'll keep you busy in your old age. There was an audible gasp in the audience. Some laughter, some groans. I smiled. That message now hangs in my office, right above my latest business award. Applause, not wild, not theatrical, but solid. Thank you. I stayed in a marriage for 18 years because I didn't think I could run the business alone. Today I'm filing for divorce. I looked at her and said what I wish someone had told me. You've already been running it alone. He just convinced you otherwise. That's the thing about women like us. We don't fail because we're weak. We fall because we carry too much. Silently. Then when we drop it all, the world says, "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" Mark used to say I wouldn't survive without him. Now, I run 5 boutiques across 3 states, employ 30 women, most of them mothers, caretakers, second chance seekers. We offer profit sharing, mental health days, paid maternity leave. Because when you've been burned by betrayal, you build with intention. You don't just create profit, you create safety. You don't just chase growth, you protect it. Sometimes I still get texts from Mark. Yes, even now. I saw your billboard. Congrats. Melissa was a mistake. We could have had it all if you weren't so cold. I never reply. He lives in a rented room above someone's garage, still trying to sell the idea that he's launching a podcast and writing a book, still blaming everyone but himself. I don't hate him. He gave me the final push I needed. Sometimes betrayal is just redirection, signed by the universe. I look around my flagship store now and feel peace. Not pride, not revenge, just peace. Because I didn't win by destroying him. I won by refusing to let him destroy me. There's a framed collage in the break room of my first store. At the center is that text message. Below it, a quote I found in an old journal. The moment you stop proving your worth to the wrong people, you become unstoppable. Sometimes new employees ask about it. Was that really from your ex-husband? I smile. Yes and no. Because the man who sent that text isn't my ex-husband. Not anymore. He's a symbol, a fossil, an echo of the woman I used to be, when I still believed being loved meant being small. Today, I teach workshops on business boundaries. I mentor high school girls who dream of opening shops but think they have to wait for permission. I support women escaping financial abuse, not because I'm a hero, but because no one should have to rebuild from the ashes alone. If you ask me what I'm most proud of, it's not the expansion, not the awards, not the magazine covers, or the influencer endorsement. They show you who you are when no one is clapping, when no one is standing beside you, when no one is handing you a safety net. That's when you meet the real version of yourself. And if you're lucky, she's stronger than you ever imagined. Don't mistake silence for weakness. Some of us learned early that the loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. That real power doesn't shout, it watches, it waits, and when the time is right, it moves. Don't think age is an expiration date. If anything, it's an awakening, a shedding of everything we were taught to tolerate. The self-doubt, the shrinking, the endless apologizing. With every year, we lose the weight of needing to be liked and gain the muscle of being respected. Women like us, when underestimated, don't crumble. We calculate, we rebuild, and when we rise without asking for permission, because survival is no longer enough. We're not here just to get through the day, to keep the peace, or to shrink for anyone's comfort. We are here to lead, to own, to build, to protect what's ours, not with fear, but with fire. So the next time someone calls your ambition cute, your boundaries cold, or your resilience too much, smile, because they've already lost, and you've already begun.